And I promise I will not take as long as the prosecution. She took almost 3 days. I'm just going to take 2.5. I hope you're laughing. Because one of my points to you as we begin this journey, and let me first say, the hardest thing as a defense attorney is to listen to the phone going off in the middle of your argument.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, sir.
Sorry.
I've always known secretly she doesn't like it. The hardest thing is to sit there for, almost 3 days, more than 3 days of argument, and not be able to jump up and say, wait a minute. That's not right. Wait a minute. She got that wrong. Wait a minute. That wasn't the evidence. A couple of times I objected. The court properly said, if you think she said it wrong, you tell them. You clear it up. That's what you're here for. That's why we have a trial. And I will. I'm going to give you some general thoughts about this case because I've been thinking about it, and I'm the only attorney that's been on this case, except for maybe the prosecutor, for 8 years. And I first want to thank Ms. Burke and Mr. Babbage, Mr. Jones, and Ms. Peters, who's not here today. And I'm sure Ms. Silverman feels the same way about Ms. Stagel. There is no way in a case with hundreds of thousands of exhibits, forensic and otherwise, 9 weeks of testimony, 50, 60 witnesses, and I'll get to that because most of those witnesses were here to establish that Monica Sementilli had an affair and to disparage her character, and they did a damn good job, and much of it was earned. But we're not here to decide whether or not Monica Sementilli was a bad wife, an adulteress, and we'll get to all those synonyms that Ms. Silverman put up there for betrayal. Because yes, she did. We're here to decide, you are here to decide, if she's been proven guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt. And I submit to you, if the evidence was that clear, it would not have taken 8 years and 8 weeks of testimony to prove it. Because most of what was presented to you were two things. With all those exhibits and all the jury instructions that His Honor is going to give to you, and that is that Robert Baker and Christopher Austin committed first-degree murder, conspired to do that. The other thing they proved over 8 years and 8 weeks and 50-plus witnesses is that Monica Lewinsky, I knew I was going to do that once. And I apologize. Monica Sementilli had an affair. I guess that's why it was on my mind, but the President of the United States is not on trial here. That's what they proved. Over 8 weeks and 50 witnesses. That Baker and Austin conspired to commit first-degree murder, and Monica Sementilli had an affair. Now, when you look at her, and I know you've looked at her throughout the trial, it's hard not to. She's the defendant. Before you go into your deliberations in the deliberation room, take one last look at her. Not with any sympathy, because she doesn't deserve any sympathy. Not with any daggers, although there are many who have had daggers out for her for a long time. That she has deserved. But look at her and say to yourself, innocent. Innocent. Before you go into the jury room. Because what the law requires you to do is exactly that. It's just not me saying that. A defendant in a criminal action is presumed to be innocent until the contrary is proven. In case of a reasonable doubt, whether it's satisfactorily shown, she's entitled to a verdict of not guilty. That places upon the people the burden of proving her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Next slide, if you would. And then it defines reasonable doubt, and you'll get this. It is not mere possible doubt, because everything open to human affairs relating to it is open to imaginary or possible doubt. The state of the case after the entire comparison and consideration of all the evidence leaves you in the condition you cannot say you feel an abiding conviction of the truth of the charge. An abiding conviction to the truth of the charge. And what that means, and what His Honor will tell you, is as you are sitting here now, the trial's not over. The trial includes closing argument and a rebuttal argument from the prosecution. The trial is not over until you go back there and start deliberating among the 12 of you. And throughout all of this, she is presumed innocent. And I submit to you what has happened in this case from the moment Robert Baker's DNA was found all over the murder scene to the moment that Monica Sementilli was tied to him by having an affair, was connected to him. It was clear that she was having an affair, a sexual affair, romantic affair, a cheating affair, every word you can think of, and Ms. Silverman put most of them up there. From the very beginning, that's what they knew. Within 2 weeks. 2 weeks of the murder. And what LAPD did, and what the prosecution did, is they assumed, just like Mr. Austin says so many times, well, I assume she knew. They assumed that the affair was proof of the murder. Not only proof, but that's all they really needed to prove, was that she was having an affair. Something that nobody doubted from the beginning. Nobody who took any look at this case. And it didn't take 51 witnesses to establish that. But I submit to you, if you went back and looked at your notes, about 30 or 40 or 50 of them almost established just that. Why do you think they did not arrest Monica Sementilli once they knew she was having an affair? Now, a more important question, frankly, that I don't have a good answer for, and maybe they do, is why they didn't arrest Robert Baker as soon as they knew he was the likely murderer. All this talk about, my God, she had no concern for the safety of her children. She didn't buy a new DVR. This is after they told her this was a knock-knock burglary. It never really reoccurs when there's a murder involved. Why are they going to come back to the murder scene? They're going to knock-knock. They're going to knock-knock someone else. Deborah Obad's husband had changed the locks. What about the second murderer? He wasn't even identified, let alone captured. You're telling me that leaving Robert Baker on the street for 4 months was necessary, was smart, was wise, was designed to keep her safe? No. And they certainly didn't need more evidence against Robert Baker. My God, they had his DNA, as I said, everywhere in that house. The murder scene, the Porsche, everywhere. They could have gone out and arrested him the next day and taken him out of the population, sat him down, and interrogated him. Maybe he would have talked, maybe he wouldn't have. Maybe they would have found out right away who Austin was. Maybe he would have made the sweet deal that Mr. Austin made 8 years later. You tell us who your partner was, and we'll take half your life back. We'll give you half your life. You're facing life without parole, you'll be out in 15 years. Well, we'll get to that because he refused any deal. And we know who jumped at the deal. But no, they did not arrest him for one reason. They wanted her. From the very beginning, and I'm not going to say they, because these gentlemen did not get on the case for like 8 years. 10, how many detectives? 12 detectives. Some died, some retired. They all wanted her. Why? The evil woman, the evil housewife, the black widow, I don't know what the stereotype they had. Maybe they just wanted her because they realized if it wasn't for her, Baker would not have been in her life. If it wasn't for her, Fabio Sementilli would be alive today. For that, she is responsible and will live for that for the rest of her life. But adultery is not murder. Bless you. If it was, there'd be a lot more people in death row or on life without parole now than there are. You know that, and I know that. And they knew that, at least LAPD, and they knew that, the prosecution. So, what did they do? They left the murderer on the street, Baker, and they decided, we're going to find more evidence against her. And how are we going to do that? Every way we can. My God, they must have used half of LAPD and the surveillance squad and narcotics squad, tailing and surveilling and listening and looking at phones and everything. They put more effort into that than in the Kennedy assassination. And what did they prove after 4 months? And we'll go through that. They proved that she was having an affair. Because if you presume she is innocent as the law requires, and you presume, just when you start your deliberations, that everything she did was to protect the affair, not to cover up the murder, you know what? Everything falls into place. She was obsessed with her family not finding out, with anybody not finding out, especially when he was murdered. Not because she was part of the murder, but because she was having an affair. An affair, and then he's murdered. And eventually, when Robert Baker was identified and arrested, for the last 7 years, she's been responsible for having brought him into their life. Because without Monica hooking up, if you will, with Robert Baker, there is no way Fabio Sementilli is dead today. But she has paid dearly for that affair. Even if you find her not guilty, she has been in jail for 8 years because of that affair. She has paid dearly. What you have to decide is if they have proven her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And that means when she covered up the phones and wanted to delete this and wanted to go, whatever she did, was it WhatsApp he put her on? Whatever the evidence was, that they went to the nightclub and she was dancing in Las Vegas and stripping and sending lurid, explicit, pornographic photos to her lover. Was it necessary to put all that on? Did you need that? Those photos of her dancing and the descriptions of having oral sex, swinging, whatever, did you need to see all that in front of her sister? Did they have to show those photographs? Whatever you find about the murder charge, one thing is clear. They set out to assassinate her character, and they did a damn good job. And you know what? A lot of it was her fault. Absolutely. You will not hear us come up here and excuse or explain one of the acts she did in having the affair or covering up the affair. What we will address is the evidence they say proves she committed the murder. The murder. Let's move on to the next slide. You heard a lot about circumstantial evidence from the prosecution. That means basically there's direct evidence that Robert Baker committed the crime. Actually, no one saw him do it. That's a lot of circumstantial evidence too. His DNA was there, and he's running up, and then of course he confessed. That's pretty good evidence. But the rest of the evidence is circumstantial. In other words, if she was on the phone, if they put in a new system, if she deleted some messages, if she was seeing him surreptitiously, she was dancing with him, if she covered this up and that up, is that evidence of the murder or the affair? Because if circumstantial evidence as to any particular count permits two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to the defendant's guilt, the other to her innocence, you must adopt that interpretation that points to the defendant's innocence and reject that interpretation that points to her guilt. If on the other hand, and this is fair, if one interpretation is unreasonable and the other is reasonable, you must accept the reasonable and reject the unreasonable. Monica Sementilli, in 8 years, has never confessed to the murder of her husband. You didn't see one bit of evidence where she says, my God, why did we kill him? Well, how could I do this? Either overheard or not overheard. She's the only one. Baker and Austin, my God, have gotten into court and pled guilty to the murder of Fabio Sementilli. Not her. Everything about, and no one saw her kill him, which obviously she did not, as if she needed an alibi, as if she would have found the body, and we'll get to that. This timing is so crucial to you in this case. By itself, it establishes as reasonable doubt the timing of this small window you heard so much about, and I'll get to that. It's all circumstantial evidence. And if you assume, if you presume, like the law requires you, that she is innocent, as she sits here right now, and you presume that throughout your deliberations, and you presume she was having an affair, everything she did is consistent with the affair. And if there are two reasons, now it could be consistent with the murder also. If you destroy the messages, or if you're at the house, or if you lie about something that the police talk to you, or you hassle them about insurance, and I'll get to that. Yeah, that could be evidence that points to guilt. It also could point to evidence that points to innocence. Yes, she wants the insurance. She got 2 kids. She knows she did nothing wrong. Why are they holding it up? And I want you to listen. And we may play some of those because I'm not going to be here 3 days, but I'll be here a few hours. All this so-called haranguing of Parshall, who unfortunately is not here and had died, totally unrelated to this, but all we have are the phone messages recorded, if you remember. There are about 5 or 6 they were played to you. Play a couple. They're very short. Interestingly, one was a message from Monica that we believed had nothing to do with the affair, and that one can't be found. It's gone. All right? Can't be found. But there are plenty. And you have been led to believe that every time she called up LAPD, whether it was Parshall, and they said Parshall had the best relationship with her, or anyone else, that she was just fixated on insurance. That's all she was thinking about, caring about. You listen to those and presume she's innocent, remember, as you are required to do. Wouldn't you be calling up knowing that what they were waiting for is to clear her? Well, why haven't you cleared me? That's what an innocent person would do. It's been 4, 5, 6 months. You had blood all over the car. Why haven't you cleared me? What about my children? Have you cleared them? My God, have you cleared Jessica and Isabella? Are they really co-conspirators? For a while I thought they were going to call them that because they had the nerve to stand by their mother. Well, they know their mother a lot better than the prosecution knows their mother. And they love their father. And when they said, we stand by our mother, we just don't believe she could have done this, they meant it. And you know what? It cost them dearly as well. It cost them the relationship with all of the relatives of Fabio. Every one of them deserted her. More than deserted her, and excuse my language, one of them called her a bitch and a cunt. Those are horrible words. And the only reason I repeat them is because they are, and they were said, admittedly, by Morella to one of the girls. This is how they treated them. But it wasn't how they treated them before the arrest, was it? Before the arrest, when they presumed Monica had nothing to do with it, as you are legally bound to presume, what was the relationship between the family? They were grieving together. They attended wakes together. They flew to Canada to honor him, and not every flight was paid for. Funeral, yes. Honoring him, no. The whole family was there. They were grieving together. They flew down. They helped out. They helped with food and lodging, and the girls lived, I think, for a while at Deborah Obad's. Everybody was helping out and feeling sorry for Monica and Jessica and Isabella, as well they should have. Did any of them, before the arrest, which was 4 months later, anyone from Wella, and you heard 5 or 6 witnesses, Henry Meyer, Eversbacher, Thor, Alicia Truesdale, you heard several witnesses testify. And you heard several family members testify. And basically, if you just sat in this audience and you listened to them from the witness stand, you would have thought, my God, they must be right. This Monica was a real work of art. She didn't care. She was getting drunk. She was singing My Way. First time I have ever heard the song My Way criticized for being sung. And it was Fabio's favorite song. But that was no good. The way she dressed was no good. The way she acted was no good. The way she hounded Mr. Mayor was no good. The way she hounded Truesdale was no good. Where's the insurance? What are you doing? Did any of them go to the police or anyone else, the head of the company, and say, you know what? Fabio was just murdered, and you ought to see how Monica is behaving. She is hounding us about insurance. She can't believe she hasn't been paid. She wants to know how much money's coming in. She wants to know about his options. She wants to know how long you're going to pay him. She wants to know all these things. Maybe she's involved. Maybe you ought to look at her. Why is she so obsessed with all that? Did any of them go to the police and say that? Because none of them were interviewed for those 4 months between the murder and the arrest, were they? You look it up. Then, what happens? Then the police tell Jessica, having the nerve to first sit her down and start questioning her again. By the way, do you remember when your mom did this? You know, and we're getting close. Don't worry. That we'll be there. We'll be there. Total lies. They lied to them for 4 months. Talk about a ruse. This is more than a ruse. Out and out lies. Even to Jessica. And you know what happens at the end of their interview in June? Oh, by the way, Jessica, we just arrested her for murder. You better go tell your sister and your family. That's how they were informed. Now, not only did Parshall or Gable, I forget who it was, announce that they were going to be, they had been arrested. In fact, that day, they don't can announce it before they're arrested, and we'll get to the arrest. So they are arrested, and the family is informed, of course, Fabio's family and Monica's family. And what do they say? Do they say what was up there? Well, she's been charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, intent to commit murder. Now, of course, she'll have a right to a trial, and we'll put on evidence, and then the jury will decide. No. You know what they said? We just arrested your mother. She killed Fabio. She killed him with Baker. We're sure of that. We know it. There's no doubt. Well, they might have just had been judged executioner and sentenced her right then and there. Have the trial there. There's no doubt. That's what was presented to the public and the family. Now, how would you react? Number one, if it was your family, his sister, his brother, children, whatever. How would Fabio's family react when the police told them, we've caught her lover, they killed him, and there's no doubt. His DNA is all over the place. They didn't spell out what they had on her other than they were having an affair. But they were more than happy to play judge, jury, and executioner, as I said. That is not their job. Their job is not to convict. Their job is to arrest. And they don't need proof beyond a reasonable doubt to arrest. Prosecution's a different story. But prosecution didn't get this case tried for a lot of reasons. Not all their fault, but I'll get to that. For 8 years. So for 8 years, if you've read anything in the paper or watched Dateline or 2020 or any of those shows like Mr. Austin did and his family, and I'll get to it.
I'm going to object. Since that's not evidence.
Again, that's overruled for the reasons I've been stating earlier.
I thought I heard that Mr. Austin and his mom and dad or whatever were watching all these crime shows. Okay? All right. Maybe they were different crime shows. But they were crime shows. That's how she knew Baker was arrested. And Monica. And we'll get to that. So if you are watching television or reading in the paper and they have a little paper clip of the actual story when the arrest took place, what are you going to assume? You know, when I open the paper and it says huge bust and I'm a criminal defense attorney and it says cartel arrested and so forth, yeah, I probably assume they got something on them. But I'm not a juror like you are. I can do that. The public can do that. The family can do that. You can't. But my point is, everything changed once they were told that Monica and her lover murdered Fabio. Only then were all these people interviewed. Only then, do we have that slide with what Luigi said? There's an interesting statement that Luigi testified to, and forgive me for jumping around, but I do that often with Mr. Babbage. And while he's looking for that, let me just tell you, what it basically says, and you'll see, is that once he learned that Monica killed Fabio with Baker, everything opened up. Here's what it is. That's Luigi's testimony from the trial of this terrible crime. There was something asked about this terrible crime, which indeed it was. Answer, right. Once you go back and start recollecting, it becomes very clear. The puzzle pieces fit together very easily. So at the time, no. But once I heard about the events in the case, you know, the clouds cleared and things started making sense again. What he's saying is, at the time of the murder, none of this made sense about Monica being involved. But once I heard about the events, their arrest, and the police saying they did it, there's no doubt, everything started to make sense again. And the problem is that none of these people from Wella or the family, or most of the other witnesses, were interviewed until after they knew or were told that Monica was guilty of killing her husband. Now, how would you look at things if it was your family and your Fabio? How would you look at things at Wella when it's clear they adored this man? And let me make it clear, you won't hear a negative word about Fabio Sementilli from this side, and I doubt from that side. If there's anything we all agree on, it's the kind of person he was. An employee rising up, beloved by everyone. Then they hear Monica had him killed with her lover, Baker. Oh, by the way, what do you recall about Monica making contact with you after the murder? Well, I got to tell you, she was rabid about that. Every time she called, it was insurance, insurance, insurance. She didn't even mention Fabio. My God, the cremation, you know, he shouldn't have been cremated. He should have been buried. That was a real problem. Oh, you should have seen the way Monica acted at the funeral, at the wake. My God, she was drinking too much. She wasn't dressed. She was my way. How inappropriate, one of them said. Everything, the clouds cleared and things started making sense. Thank you, Jeremy. All of a sudden, for the first time, we heard about lack of tears. We heard about he shouldn't have been cremated. We heard about my way. We heard about replacing Bella's totaled Fiat and buying a Mustang. We heard about the focus on life insurance. That's when we started hearing about that, after they were told they had been arrested and Monica was guilty. If she had had tears, they would have been fake tears. Whatever she had done, it would have been wrong. Because you didn't hear about lack of tears except from Gable at the grand jury. No one who came to the house that night ever said, you know what? She wasn't crying. Well, some people cry and some don't. I cry in movies more than I cry over tragedies in the family. That's just me. Some said Bella was frozen. She didn't know how to react. Everyone who was asked the day of the murder and shortly thereafter, the police asking him said yes. She was heartbroken. She wore his sweatshirt for a week. She wanted to sleep in his bed that night. All of that is going to be turned around and made dirty. Because if you conclude, if you presume she was guilty, if you presume she is guilty, that everything she did is going to look bad. It's going to look not kosher. Something's wrong. But if you look at her as the law requires and presume for the purposes of the short time you have left, which is now hearing to me, listening to me, and I thank you for that. You have no choice, but I thank you for that. Because this is still part of the trial. If you presume she is innocent when you go back there, just look at the evidence from the prism of she is innocent and had nothing to do with the murder. And then you'll see that asking about the insurance was not that crazy, because it also was acting about, when are you going to find out who did this? And about her financial issues, you're going to realize she didn't know that Wella was going to give him 6 months' salary and take care of the hospital and medical and forgive the car loan. She didn't know that originally, when she's supposed to be obsessed with insurance in the beginning. Well, yeah, if your husband suddenly dies and you know he has insurance and you know it's for the kids, remember, half of that money, almost half, maybe a little less, was going to the children. Some was going to Luigi. Monica wanted Luigi to know that he had a separate policy that was going to protect his college education. All of that now becomes dirty. And everything she did in terms of having the affair with Baker was made even more dirty. It was made slutty. She was made into a whore. What did they uncover with all those surveillance? Imagine the manpower and the cost to go around surveilling and tracking their cars and where they went for 4 months. What have they found? She kissed a bouncer. They went to nightclubs. She didn't come home every night when she should have. If that was a crime, my mom would have been in jail. Everyone's had nights when you're 16, 17, 18, and mom and dad are supposed to be home at 10 and they come in at 12. Okay. It's not cool. It's not good. It doesn't make him a murderer. And what did you see? You saw text messages over a 4-month period for 3 nights. One of them when Jessica was saying, hey, take it easy, Bella. You were going out too. Was it good for her? Was it the right thing to do for her to continue her affair with Robert Baker after Fabio was killed? That's an easy question. Of course not. But they had been having the affair for a year before then. And whatever it was in her psyche or her marriage or her upbringing or her sexual desires, I can't tell you. I'm not a psychiatrist. But I can tell you this, that none of that makes you a murderer. And the worse they try to make her look, the more you should ask yourself, why? Why? I mean, I had all this evidence. She did it, this forensic evidence. We will go through every one of the forensic evidence. We will show you when they say Monica only contacted Baker when she was eventually cleared. They said, another ruse. Everything that police did in this case was a lie. Okay, they told you why, but it was. It wasn't true that Monica first told Baker. 2 nights before, he told his family. She was there for her graduation. She got an email 2 days before saying we're close. The letter's going to be written. You're going to be cleared. They celebrated. She and Anna and her family. 2 days later, she gets the final email. You have been cleared. Yes, she lets Baker know. It's her lover. What? She's going to let him know. I mean, I guess the next day they were supposed to fly off to Italy in a plane and buy half the real estate in Las Vegas. Do you really think that Monica's family was ever going to accept Robert Baker as her new partner? There's a big reason why she wasn't going to divorce him. It had nothing to do with religion. My God, she got married because of the divorce that Fabio had when they were having an affair. She wasn't going to divorce him, and she certainly wasn't, after the murder, going to say, oh, I just want you to know, I miss my husband, but hey, it's okay, boy, I got a real winner for you now. He's a child molester and a porn star. That was never going to happen. She was never going to divorce him. She had everything she wanted, moral or not. She had a loving husband, making a good living, living the good life, 2 beautiful kids, and whatever Mr. Baker offered, in bed or otherwise, she had that too. Why kill him? Why kill him? Not even to mention having the ability to plan a plot to kill your husband. I mean, that takes a pretty devious mind. Did she have a criminal record? Was there anything in her background that would make you believe that she'd run off with this porn star and kill her husband to be with him? No chance. Ah, but where does that leave him? Where does that leave the wonderful Mr. Baker? If she goes back to her family and her husband or finds somebody new, he's gone. He was broke at the time. You check the records. He didn't have $1 to his name. You can bet he wanted money because he thought she had it. But it wasn't her wanting the money. He did. She had plenty. And if she divorced him, and we'll put that death versus divorce chart up there. And by the way, the death versus divorce was not introduced by us. Oh, you had Mr. Malatesta, and he was up there telling you how he represented Britney Spears and this one and that one. You know what? That's Mr. Malatesta. He's a show-off. Does it make him a bad lawyer? Does it make him wrong about alimony? Who was right about alimony? Miss Eversbacher put up, here's what you get for death, and here's what she got for divorce, much more from death. And you know what? There was nothing in the categories for alimony. Now, she said, well, it's speculative. And okay, so put up there, speculative. Oh, it could have been 5 years or 10 years. So put up there, 5 years, $20,000 a year, whatever, you get $100,000, $50,000 a year. He was making a lot of money. They were married for 20 years. This is a no-fault state, which means you could have 20 affairs, and if you get divorced and you were married in California, you get community property. I don't care what kind of cheater you were or adulterer you were. It's not even up there. Then they put up there for the P&G stock options $935,000. So she knew if she had him killed, she'd get $935,000. That is BS. That is so false, it's hard even to discuss it. She took the amount that the options were worth in 2023, 2024, 7 years later, and the only reason they were exercised is because Mr. Rubin, the administrator of the estate who was chosen by Luigi, got a letter from Procter & Gamble saying, you got options here. You don't exercise them, you're going to lose them. So he exercised them. $935,000. And that was Monica's planning? She'd been rotting in jail for 7 years. You don't think she could have used some of the money from the options? At least to pay her lawyer. It's a joke.
Yes. This is a good time to break. Let's take our lunch and recess until 1:30. The admin supplies and discuss this case among yourselves. If anyone else would form or express any opinion to the cause, it's when I submit it to you. Have a good lunch. See you at 1:30.